Om Mandra Sadhva Samaya Manu Palaya Bandra Sadhva Deno Pai Didra Dedo Me Bhav Sodo Kayo Me Bhava Zubu Kayo Me Bhava Anorado Me Bhava Sarva Sede Me Praya Sarva Krama Suza Me Zedan Shreya Guru Ha 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 ho bhagavan sarvada gata bhadrama me munza baranze bhava ma samaya satva.
All mother sentient beings, limitless as the sky, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and all knowingness. May they experience happiness and be separated from suffering. I will quickly establish them in the state of the most perfect and precious Bodhi. All mother sentient beings, limitless as the sky, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and all knowingness. May they experience happiness and be separated from suffering. I will quickly establish them in the state of the most perfect and precious Bodhi. All other sentient beings, limitless as the sky, especially those enemies who hate me, obstruct us, who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and all knowingness. May they experience happiness and be separated from suffering. I will quickly establish them in the state of the most perfect and precious Bodhi. Thus, until I achieve Buddha, I engage in virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I engage in virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I engage in virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. In the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, most excellent, I take refuge until Bodhi is reached by the merit of generosity and other perfections. May I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all wandering beings in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, most excellent. I take refuge until Bodhi is reached by the merit of generosity and other perfections. May I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all wandering beings in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, most excellent. I take refuge until Bodhi is reached by the merit of generosity and other perfections. May I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all wandering beings. May all mother sentient beings, limitless as the sky, have happiness, and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering, and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from the bias of attachment and aversion. May all Mother sentient beings, limitless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from their happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from the bias of attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, limitless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from the bias of attachment and aversion. Vajra Samaja, Vajra Samaja, Vajra Samaja. Protectors of all sentient beings without exception, deities who vanquish the ruthless hordes of Maras, knowers of everything as it is, Bhagavans and your retinues, please come here. Aryam Padyam Pushpe Dupe Aloke Gende Nivide Shabda Pratijaso. This ground sprinkled with scented waters and strewn with flowers, adorned with the supreme mountain. Four continents, sun and moon, I hold in mind as a Buddha land, and offer it. May all wandering beings experience such a pure realm. Whatever slight virtue that may have been gathered through prostrating, offering, confessing, rejoicing, requesting, beseeching, I now dedicate to complete body. Go to page 3 of the Mahamudra manual. First, in a secluded place, sit on a comfortable cushion in Vajra posture. Straighten the spine. Place both your hands in the gesture of meditative equipoise, holding that below your navel. Then gaze at the tip of your nose. No need to close your eyes all the way, just lower your gaze. Let the tongue lightly touch the upper palate. Leave your teeth and lips in their natural position. Then let breath flow comfortably, naturally, continuously, observing and observing the passage of your breath. Exhale, inhale, exhale, then inhale and exhale. When you are inhaling, notice how your entire body expands a little outwards. And when you exhale, the body settles back in and then expands again, settles in, contracting, expanding, contracting. As the body is expanding, feel that your whole body is pulling in this life energy that comes in the form of oxygen, filling every single part of your body down to every single cell that's being fed, that's being nourished. Notice the mind becoming sharp and clear, especially when you're inhaling. And the mind becomes contented, resting as you exhale. And then inhale, the mind again becoming radiant and bright. Exhale, the mind becoming quiet, steady, unmoving. Little by little, free from effort, breath exhales and inhales just as it is. Mind becomes bright and radiant. Mind becomes steady and unmoving. And as with the mind, so with the body. Body is upright, open, with shoulders open, body upright, as well as body unmoving, not giving in to these movement, fidgeting. Comes first from the mind being contented and happy to just settle and be present. The mind, as the mind settles, so does the body. As the body settles, the mind settles even more deeply. Again and again, return to breath when the mind seems dull or scattered. Understand that even the scattered mind and the settled mind, the relationship is between the waves and the water and the ocean. They are the two forms of the same thing. Consider the difficulty of obtaining this human life with all the freedoms and advantages, and the great fortune of having obtained this. Resolving then not to squander this unique opportunity and become blind to the truth of impermanence and death. We pay attention to karmic cause and effect, the causality of both happiness and suffering, recognizing that as long as we are circling in this cycle, wandering in this cycle, moving on to the next, to the next, to the next point in this cycle of confusion, then there's no end to this cycle. With this, we make a determination to be free. Arising from this, we commit to seeing the faults of confused existence, recognizing the freedoms of the Buddha state. We resolve to achieve the Buddha state both for ourselves and for others. To cultivate loving kindness, we begin by bringing to mind someone who has been very kind to us, and we recognize their kindness, feeling gratitude, and in the experience of gratitude towards this person, we wish them well, we wish them happiness. All we want is for them to be happy, to be safe, to be protected from harm. Radiating this to the person who has been most kind to us, being the first step. Following this, we extend this, radiate this wish for wellness, wish for happiness towards this person and out towards all beings in all directions, radiating loving kindness towards all. Wishing them happiness, wishing them wellness, wishing them well being. Wishing that they experience happiness, wishing that they gain the causes of happiness. It can also help if we do this with slightly modifying the body with a slight smile on our faces. Let this warm radiance go out in all directions, wishing goodwill and well-being to all beings without exception. Forming an attitude of friendliness towards all, malice towards none. Dispelling suspicion, resentment, jealousies, overcoming all obstacles in this way, overcoming all oppositions in this way. Then whatever we try to achieve with others, for others, can come into fruition. Especially at the beginning of this, as we breathe in, we can think of, remember, recall the experience of receiving kindness from others. And as we breathe out, we radiate this kindness, the same kindness towards all. And recognizing how others would in turn feel when kindness is going to them, then they radiate kindness towards us. We receive experience with gratitude and happiness, and in turn, we radiate this out. At your own pace, in your own time, when you're ready, then you proceed to cultivating compassion. The most powerful way to cultivate compassion is to take an object that is the opposite, the very opposite object that we have chosen in the first practice, which is the practice of cultivating loving kindness. In the practice of loving kindness, we choose some person that has been most kind to us. Here, we choose for compassion one that has been unkind, one that has been difficult, an enemy. But now put ourselves in their shoes and to see how little choice they have, how little control they have, how they themselves are in a state of destitute and unhappiness, and therefore they have struck out against us. See how helpless and hapless they are, how pitiable the state that they are in. In both cases, for cultivating loving kindness and compassion, we remember that sentient beings are mother sentient beings. Now, in this case, this particular mother is experiencing suffering and lashing out with suffering. Seeing that, we want them to be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. How pitiable they are. May they be free from this situation, from this oppression. May our mothers be free from resentment, be freed from anger, be free from all the causes of suffering. In the end, loving kindness and compassion are two sides of the same coin. At some point, the line is no longer necessary. Underlying this is developing consideration and care for all without exception. And as a tip, just like as we're cultivating loving kindness, we put a smile on our face. When we're cultivating compassion, we can furrow our brow or make a sad face as necessary, as helpful. Cultivating loving kindness can be light and buoyant, whereas cultivating compassion can be heavy But with regards to both, never forget that these are appearances, and appearances lack inherent existence. Appearances have emptiness as their nature. And in this way, hold the heart steady. As loving kindness and compassion become stronger, less biased, more universal, we then move in the direction of making a commitment to do the very best that we can, both for ourselves and for others, and that is to achieve the state of Buddha. So then we give rise to bodhicitta, aspiring to achieve the result of Buddhahood. Making this aspiration to achieve the result of Buddhahood and recognizing cause and effect, that in order to reach this effect, causes have to be created, then we make a commitment to pursuing the causes, which is application bodhicitta. Making a commitment to application bodhicitta in order to fulfill aspiration bodhicitta. This bodhicitta that has arisen now takes the appearance of co-emergent Chakasamvara, both Heruka and Varahi. Heruka being method, Varahi being wisdom or insight. Heruka being appearances, Varahi being emptiness. Emptiness and appearances inseparable. Method and insight inseparable. The knowing aspect of mind and the emptiness aspect of mind inseparable. We turn up as idam. So yesterday, briefly, we looked at the specific meditation exercise, the specific visualization to cultivate in terms of the third aspect of the fivefold. The third aspect of fivefold is part of the creation stage of secret mantra. The secret mantra main practice being the creation stage and the completion stage. Sometimes also, I've seen now some translations choosing the creation process and the completion process. Mm. So think of them as processes, active rather than maybe stage, but literally in Tibetan is stage. As not like a stage, but stages. When it says the creation stage, it's the stages, the developments. The completion stages are also, development. So of the fivefold Mahamudra, the idam is training in the appearance aspect. Guru also training in the appearance aspect. Then the fourth, the natural state Mahamudra, is training in completion, the processes, the stages in the completion part, and that is training with the essence, the emptiness, at least at the beginning of the natural Mahamudra part, and then eventually, by the time we kind of reach the fullness of the natural Mahamudra, then appearances and emptiness become truly experienced as inseparable. Dharmata and dharmas are seen as, and Tampopa uses this imagery, the sun and its rays, sandalwood and its fragrance, fire and its warmth. So the heart and the activities of the heart are recognized clearly for what they are. So anyway, in the first of the creation stage as it pertains to Guru, there are 3 meditations given in our manual, although in later manuals there are 4. And this relates to the principle of the 3 kayas. And kaya are the exalted forms. Or less literally, we're talking about dimensions of being. And being here being awakened being, awakened authentic being, authentic presence. Then when we speak of the 3 bodies, there's the Dharmakaya, the unchanging, always abiding as such aspect of awakened being, and the Dharmakaya, the reality body, literally. The Sambhogakaya is the enjoyment body. And this is speaking to how this Dharmakaya, in its own natural way, has this dimension where it is, you could say, resonating with love and compassion, skillful means. And this is subtle. So it says that Sambhogakaya is subtle dimension. Then Nirmanakaya is the dimension of emanation, embodiment. So these being the 3 dimensions. In our manual, we work with the first dimension, the most material, kind of the most manifested of the three in the form of Buddha Shakyamuni. And we cultivate identifying with Buddha Shakyamuni. Yourself as Buddha Shakyamuni and yourself as the Guru. Second, during the Sambhogakaya meditation, there we cultivate ourselves in the form of either Buddha Vairochana or Vajradhara. And then third, with the Dharmakaya, then there's nothing to visualize. So now that becomes a bridge to the fourth, to the formless, without characteristics, completion stage. So anyway, as I said, this topic of Guru and devotion towards the Guru is not such a simple topic. It's quite broad, far-ranging topic, and that I think for many of us, we need to visit this question and look more closely. And so I shared an excerpt from a longer text called An Essentialized Collection on Treasuring the Guru's Instruction. So please look at that now. Also, if you have this blue book, it's also in this book. It's page 39. Page 39. So page 39, so here, Om Swasti, that's a literary form, the beginning of such compositions. Om Swasti is like a way to start by saying, may it all go well, may it be smooth, may this writing be accomplished smoothly, may it all be well and auspicious. We pay homage to the sublime gurus, the essence of all Buddhas of the three times, past, present, and future, the treasury of all qualities, inconceivable and inexpressible, and the glory and protectors of every single wandering being. We pay homage to noble Vajrapani, the Lord of secrets of all Buddhas throughout the three times. So this text is said to be one of the few texts actually composed by Gyoba Jigten Sungpa. It's mentioned in his earliest biography. So this paying homage to noble Vajrapani, Vajrapani is one of the three great bodhisattvas in the Mahayana tradition. The three being Manjushri, that embodies wisdom, Avalokiteshvara, that embodies compassion, and then love and compassion, and then Vajrapani, that embodies power. Power here means the ability to achieve, the aspect of being able to achieve the purposes, the welfare of beings. But then particularly Vajrapani is also associated with the secret mantra teachings. It's said that he was entrusted with the secret mantra teachings to protect and to disseminate the secret mantra teachings. So here, when Gyoba Rinpoche, I believe, specifically highlights noble Vajrapani, he is highlighting the secret mantra nature this particular teaching. Also, in Kyoba Rinpoche's biography, interestingly, it identifies Vajrapani as saying that Kyoba Rinpoche is the emanation of Vajrapani, of the Bodhisattva, of the embodiment of power, which is really interesting in the sense because Kyoba Rinpoche's example isn't that of like a, powerful tantric person, doing outrageous things. So it's an interesting connection, or gives us insight, perhaps, like when we say power, it's not what we superficially think of as power, demonstrating uh, great feats, magical feats to impress those who don't have faith in you, or things like that. He rarely does things like that. Anyway, generally, from what cause did this great ocean of samsara, which has the nature of suffering, arise? And so, where does this cycle of confusion come from? They come from ignorance. They come from confusion. Ignorance abides as the nature of confusion. So, not knowing, ignorance, not knowing. And when we don't know, or we misknowing, and knowing wrongly, and then we become deluded. And the nature of ignorance is delusion. So there is two words, one is not knowing, and one is becoming deluded. And so here basically is saying they kind of feed each other. They are the same problem that we're talking about. So then specifically, when discussed more generally, it's, you could say, not knowing the causes of suffering, not knowing the causes of happiness. And then if we discuss this, if we talk about this in the context of Mahamudra, then not knowing that we are Buddhas, not knowing the nature of our minds. Instead, we are wandering around, thinking that the thieves are, our benefactors, thinking that the kleshas, the afflictive emotions, are our true kind of friends, when they are not. Rarely, of course, do we sit around and think the afflictions are our friends, but then our behavior shows that that's what we believe. When we are consumed by anger and annoyance, and someone comes along and say, you really should not feel this way, then we feel like we want to bite this person's head off their body. We just snap at them and say, leave me with my friends, Likewise, when we're feeling miserable, we then, to our detriment, we avoid, happy people. We go look for even more sour types, because it feels really good on some level. Oh, this is so nice, that I'm with a miserable bunch. Then we feed each other this misery. On and on and on, This is how, samsara turns up, not recognizing our basic nature as a Buddha. We follow these veils, these adventitious identities. There are two types of ignorance. Rinpoche here says. There's the ignorance, which is deluded uh, with respect to karmic cause and effect. And this is what he calls dependent arising in forward progression. How things come to be, how happiness come to be, how suffering come to be, not seeing the interdependent, that how when this is present, then this happens. When this is happening, then this happens. When this is present, then this happens. So the forward progression of dependent arising. Not knowing that, not understanding that. First kind of ignorance. Second kind of ignorance is deluded with respect to suchness. Suchness is another term that it's the synonym for emptiness, but stated in more positive terms. Some of us don't like emptiness. Ugh, emptiness. Suchness. Suchness means it is as such. It is so. Suchness, isness, thusness. These are all synonyms. So, with regards to emptiness, with regards to suchness, and this is called dependent arising in reverse progression. So, this is talking about the essence aspect. So, ignorance with regards to the appearance aspect and ignorance with regard to the essence aspect. Not knowing, misknowing that at the essence level is emptiness, is self, no self, not self. This is not self, this is not self, that is not self. That which is not self, we claim and own as self. That's at the root of that problem. Then understanding not self, understanding emptiness is one side. Also need to understand how, in spite of, despite emptiness, not self, happiness and suffering turns up. This is dependent origination, dependent arising in forward progression, and dependent arising in reverse. So these are the two ignorances, or two aspects of ignorance, according to Gilbert Rinpoche. So here it shows, at the root of the Buddha Dharma, the problem is a problem of not knowing or misknowing. And the solution is wisdom or insight, clear seeing. Is this a real raising hand or
Real.
demonic disturbance?
No, it's real.
Real enough.
Real enough, yeah. I don't understand the term reverse progression. How I heard what you said, but I don't see how
When
that's
you see
reverse.
suffering, where did suffering come from? It came from this. Then where did this come from? It comes from this. Where did this come from? It comes from this. When you trace it all the way back to ignorance, what is the nature of ignorance? Empty. Reverse.
Got it. Thank you.
So reverse, going forward, going backwards. And this is actually a classic description of how to look at more specifically. So there is the general principle of dependent arising. Then there is specific, the 12 links of dependent arising. There the Buddha break down the whole process by highlighting, because this, then this, because this, then this, because this, then this, because this, then this, 12. And in that classical presentation, Buddha says, first, you see how, especially, there he emphasizes, especially how, see how suffering is produced. and how suffering plays out. Right? And seeing how suffering is produced and suffering plays out, you learn how to reverse. By cutting this, this is cut. By cutting this, this is cut. By cutting this, this is cut. And now you go the reverse. And finally, cut ignorance. Gist of what we have to do, right? If we want happiness when we don't want suffering. But to do this, it is the Guru who enables you to know and understand ignorance and knowing. Right now, we're under the power of ignorance. How do we gain this knowledge? How do we know? How do we develop this knowing, this clear knowing, by relying on the Guru? This knowledge and understanding is known as Buddha Dharma. Buddha Dharma is not the Dharma that belongs to the Buddhas. Buddha Dharma is the Dharma that makes us Buddhas. Furthermore, the victors, the Buddhas, those who embody all supreme qualities, have taught that Buddha Dharma is dependent on spiritual friends. Here, spiritual friends is not talking about buddies. Spiritual friend is Kalyana Mitra in Sanskrit, or in Tibetan is actually Geshe. These days, Geshe is an academic kind of title given to Buddhist professors, so to say, especially in the Gelugpa tradition. But not exclusive. In the Bonpo tradition, they also call them Geshes. And I think in Drigong, in earlier times, we also call them Geshes. Geshe. Because Geshe is Gewa Shenyan. Gewa is virtuous, virtue. Shenyan, knowing. So what is a spiritual guide? A spiritual guide is someone who is virtuous and has knowledge. And there it gives us the basic qualities that our their lives needs to be committed to virtue. Of course, in these days, in this time, to expect to find someone totally we recognize as virtuous may be difficult. Even in Buddha Shakyamuni's time, it was difficult for many people. Even with him walking the good earth, there are people who are like, But generally speaking, virtuous, at the very least, we have to see that this person is committed to virtue. And this person knows, has right knowledge, has important knowledge that they're able to share with us. Right? So this is spiritual friends, literally is Geshe. Geshe, Gewa Shenyan. Right? The one who knows virtue. The virtuous and knowing and knowledgeable. Right? You can also say someone who is virtuous and knowledgeable. Or you could even say someone who knows virtue. Even more. Those are not two separate things, In the end, knowing what? Knowing that which is virtuous. In the end, what would make someone virtuous? Knowing the right things. Right? So, the Buddha Dharma is dependent on such individuals called Kalyana Mitra, Geshe, spiritual friends. All the teachings of Buddhas can clear away our heaps of ignorance and suffering. In terms of practicing the path, it is explained that the cause, path, and result are all traversed solely by relying on the Guru. Acharya Virupa taught the empowerments of the cause, path, and result are spinning as the wheel of taking empowerment as the path. So, basically, in the context of secret mantra, this notion of taking empowerment as the main practice. So here it's saying the cause empowerment, is the empowerment that we receive, that we take from such a guide. The path empowerment is the practice of the creation and completion processes, stages, after receiving the empowerment. And the result empowerment is actualizing what we have been empowered with. In fact, empowerment, we are fundamentally already empowered. That's the Buddha nature. But just as, in the old days when people think of kings and princes and, princes succeeding kings, in that understanding, right? A prince can only be a true prince if he has the prince stuff that he got from kind of the DNA from the father to the son. We may disagree with, how kings are actually made, but, using that example, nonetheless, the crown prince doesn't assume full power until a ceremony of installation happens. Likewise, the ceremony of empowerment is the equivalent. But in the first place, you cannot empower a beggar, according to the example of what makes a prince and what makes a king a king. So using this example, there are no beggars. So that's the good news. Because we are all prince and princesses. We are all that. Or they. The Buddha they. And through empowerment, that is ripened, we are installed, and then we manifest, we bring into fruition, we actualize those qualities. Viewed through the paramita vehicle, this is the exoteric approach, bodhicitta's 22 aspects are attained by relying on a guru who has given rise to the mind of supreme awakening. It is said that you traverse the path by means of these 22 aspects of bodhicitta. So Kyuba Rinpoche is saying, if you look at it from the perspective of general Mahayana, which is the paramita system, the characteristic system, then there is very detailed teachings and discussions on bodhicitta by using 21 similes and how you then cultivate accordingly. Ultimately, in both the paramita and secret mantra vehicles, the purification of all karmic, afflictive, and cognitive obscurations, and the accomplishment of all the good qualities of samsara and nirvana arise by relying on a guru. Now, since the publication of this text, and more I feel that this word purification should be used in a more careful way. Here, right, it is not saying karmic, afflictive, and cognitive obscurations can be purified. Here it's talking about purifying the mind from these obscurations. When you wash a cloth, you're washing the cloth, you're not washing the dirt, the stains that is on the cloth. You're removing the stench and the stains from the cloth. So you're clearing the stench, you're clearing the stains from the cloth. So this is kind of translations. But sometimes this gives rise to people thinking, oh, I can keep my afflictive emotions and have it too. Be enlightened and still walk around with all the afflictive emotions because now they have been purified. By definition, these afflictive emotions cannot be purified because, even more basic to the point, they are adventitious and they are not. They are not, innate. They are mistakes, so they need to be cleared. Furthermore, Vajradhara has taught that accomplishment comes from following an acharya, following a master. In brief, it is said that the union of the exalted body, speech, mind, qualities, and activities, and the three kayas and five wisdoms of all Buddhas of the three times, past, present, and future, the dharmas of scripture and manifest realization of all Buddhas, the twofold Sangha, in other words, the three jewels, they are none other than the Guru. The Tantra of the arising of Samvara states, the Guru is Buddha, the Guru is Dharma, the Guru is Sangha, the Guru is the source, the creator of all three. The Kaya, the body, the exalted form embodying all Buddhas, the very essence of Vajradhara, root of the three jewels, homage to you, the Guru. Guru is the Buddha, as in the Guru's mind is no different from Buddha. Guru is Dharma, is when the words of the Guru are the Dharma instructions. Guru is Sangha, is when the Guru's activities. When we can see someone having these qualities, then they become the Guru for us. Every single positive quality comes from venerating the sublime Guru. These positive qualities only arise from a qualified Guru. Now, this is really important. A Guru lacking in qualifications will not be able to bring about these qualities. In this respect, the precious Guru has taught. And this precious Guru can refer to Jigten Sumgön, can refer to Jigten Sumgön's teacher. In this case, since Jigten Sumgön wrote this, then the precious Guru is his teacher, Mahamudra. In this respect, the precious Guru has taught how blank tata molds, the molds for making these, sacred images, are unable to produce tatas, to print tatas. The qualifications of gurus are detailed at great length in the Buddha scriptures and are said to lead to positive qualities arising in the student's mind stream. So if they do not have the quality of patience, they have no way to cause their students to develop patience. If they have no quality of loving kindness, they will not be able to lead their students to loving kindness. Is Gilbert Rinpoche's point here. The precious Guru has enumerated the immeasurable qualifications of gurus, summarizing them into three qualities. The precious master with three qualities, the heart emanations of Buddhas of the three times. To you, Guru of great bliss, I bow down. These three qualities are the quality to guide others on the path to liberation and all-knowingness, which comes from internalizing all universal and general characteristics of phenomenon through wisdom. All universal and general characteristics of phenomena through through wisdom. The ability to take on the burden of the suffering of all mother sentient beings as vast as space through compassion. So through wisdom, this is someone who sees clearly, understands clearly. Then, because of their compassion, they can take on the burden of the suffering of mother sentient beings. So this means, they care about us. So we are patients, we're ill, and we go to them, and they're not annoyed. They care for us. Then third, this is a third quality that he adds. Sometimes only two are spoken of, but in a practical way, he says, they do not have even the slightest concern for this life. This is a superior guru. In other words, a fully awakened Buddha is like this. They have seen completely without error. They have compassion without bias and limit. And they do not have the slightest concern for this life. Of course, to find someone like this, not easy. And even when we have found someone like this, we may not recognize that they have these qualities. But nonetheless, these are three things that we can use to think about. Who can help us? Who can guide us? Alternately, the single ability to point out co-emergence, the very nature of mind, suffices. He says, also, in some rare cases, if they have the ability and the chemistry with us, that they can point out nature of our mind, they can show us nature of our mind, then that person is also a guru for us. Through their kindness, they bring about the dawning of great bliss in a single instant. I bow at the lotus feet of this precious master who is the Vajra holder. The Guru introducing you to the nature of mind is a precious master who resembles the famed wish-fulfilling jewel. There are uncountable ways in which you should attend to such a Guru. Nevertheless, the ultimate way to do so is through intense devotion and longing, never letting your mind be separated from the sublime Guru at any time or in any situation. And with this mindset, you venerate the Guru at all times and on all occasions. You may be in a faraway land when you hear the Guru's name, yet if you possess intense devotion and longing, the emanation bodies of all the victors will come to bless you and allow for immeasurable doors of samadhi and other positive qualities to arise in your mind stream. This was the case with Sadapadudita, the ever-weeping bodhisattva. He heard the name of the bodhisattva Dharmodgata and felt great longing. And yet devotion from a distance by itself is not enough, since the cause of Buddha Sambhogakaya is the imprint accumulated merit, the perfect benefiting of self and others. One must venerate the sublime Guru in the following way. So he gives more detailed instructions on that. So this is really talking about, again, I feel, first of all, we should not approach the subject by, oh, wow, this is so great. Wow, this is so important. Let me go find one. Let me go find one. No, don't do that. And sometimes, due to other reasons, so eager to get attention, so eager to be loved, so eager to seek someone's approval, so eager to feel like someone particularly cares for us, and then we rush into wanting to find such a person. In fact, bottom line here is, when we do have this kind of relationship, and this kind of relationship is not talking about, in fact, too casual, it will not work. This thing about, oh, he's my friend and he's also my teacher, doesn't work. That doesn't work. Milarepa said, best to live 3 valleys away from the Guru. Otherwise, becomes too casual. 3 valleys away means, right? What does it mean? Today's 3 valleys and Milarepa's 3 valleys is not the same. What is 3 valleys? The time it takes now to travel 3 valleys is how long? Maybe 5 hours, depending on the valleys and the mountains involved, right? 5 hours. And that's 5 hours by car. Milarepa's time 3 valleys is what? 10 days? 10 days of walking. 15 days of walking. Today, no place is far enough. And have we become more advanced, more developed? No. It's an interesting dynamic here. One hand, it says, intense longing and devotion. But on the other hand, you cannot immediately access. So what happens? Specifically with how we practice Dharma. What happens? You keep hearing, my Guru is my most direct source of knowing, of understanding, of receiving the Dharma. So whatever I have received, whatever that I have gotten, that is so precious, I need to put that into practice. Then you long for, you pray, it says to the Guru, because it's at least 15 days of walking. So you can't just walk back and forth, back and forth. You spend all your life just walking. So you work on what has been given to clear your own doubts, to clear. So it's not endless clarification from the Guru. Doesn't work. Because you have to apply it yourself. When you apply it, it may not, often it doesn't immediately work. In fact, temporarily it'll create chaos, doubt. But you don't give up because your devotion to the Guru. You don't give up. And not you don't give up. I'm so devoted to Guru, I don't give up. But I also don't struggle. I just wait. Maybe I'll send a pigeon to the Guru, and the Guru will send a pigeon back. And those kinds of answers that they can send a pigeon back, just thus have I heard. If you are not going to struggle with the practice, work with it. And just, maybe it's in page 74. And hoping that it's page 74. Or maybe it's in page 43. So there's an interesting, a very, I think, important dynamic here. Trusting the Guru. Now, you, me, trust, trust the Buddha, trust Buddha Shakyamuni, trust Gyopa Jigten Sungpa. Whoever of these great masters you have devotion to, trust that. Then apply the teachings. Don't hope, some quick answer, some easy answer will come somewhere. And as you practice, all the ups and downs during your practice, you keep pushing forward, because of devotion. So the equivalent, now, what is potentially kind of similar, if you were in Jigong Til in the 13th, 12th century, Jigten Sumgun is alive. You're fortunate enough to be living in the valley there. So in the morning, everyone may gather like this for an hour or maybe less, and then go back to your own spaces. Whatever things that needs to be done overall for the community, I'm sure there are some maintenance things to be done. But basically then you go into your own spaces, do the practice, cultivate the mind. It's up to you. No one's going to come spy on you. There's no group sitting, even. If you want to go back to your hut and sleep the rest of the day, well, that's the choice you're making. And every morning, just go get entertained. Hear the Lama, oh, wow, oh, wow, 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 wow. Then, do some chores, eat your lunch, nap. Evening, maybe see some people, and go to sleep. Next morning, wake up again. That's your choice, But how it's supposed to work is you then go practice. Do whatever chores that need to be done, then practice what was received in the morning. Then after a period of time like this, if Kyoba Rinpoche can see that it's time, then he will say, okay, now you go. Enough of listening to me, now you go. And a lot of times it's you go and don't come back anymore. You got everything already. So many of these would go kind of perpetually, staying in retreat. And sometimes then they attract disciples, they establish new communities. That also happens. That also happens. So for us, at the very least, we try, to apply some of this to whatever, degree that we can. Okay. Dedication. Page 78. By the virtues collected in the 3 times by me and the entirety of samsara and nirvana, and by the innate root of virtues, may I and all sentient beings quickly attain the unsurpassed, perfect, complete, precious Bodhi. Changchu Semcho Rinpoche Ma Ge Ba No Ge Gu Che Ge Ba Nyam Ba Me Ba Gong Ne Gong Du Bel Wa Shu. Okay, bye-bye everyone. See you tomorrow. Ta-ta.